Welcome to Better Sex, where you get the information and inspiration to create and enjoy your best possible sex life. Join your host, sex therapist Jessa Zimmerman, as she brings you expert guests, helpful tips, knowledge, and strategies to improve your intimate relationships. And now, your host, Jessa Zimmerman.
Hey, it's Jessa. Welcome back to another episode of the Better Sex Podcast. So glad you are here tuning in, joining me for yet another, I think, fascinating conversation about sex. I just have so much fun talking about all this stuff. It's so interesting. It seems like it's endless. I think I'm on episode, as I'm recording this today, I think I've had 150 episodes out and still tons of ideas of things to be talking about that could be helpful. Today's episode, we're talking about orgasmic expansion, which is a sort of a hybrid technique that my guest, Serena Haines, has developed out of, sort of fusing a number of techniques she has used and been exposed to as a somatic sex educator and sexological body worker. So she has a practice where she works on in a hands-on way with individuals, but she has this technique that she coaches couples through, where she's not involved in any hands-on way, but is helping couples really maximize their pleasure and their awareness of that erotic buildup in their bodies and their partner's bodies. So she's here to talk about orgasmic expansion, not because orgasm is a goal or orgasm is a point, but because we're talking about maximizing pleasure. And this fits in so nicely with the Intimacy with Ease method, because that is really geared towards couples, who are in an otherwise happy relationship but are struggling with sex, and it's become stressful and disappointing and difficult and loaded and even fraught. And maybe they're avoiding sex with each other. Once people do the work or the healing or the paying attention to bring their sex life back together, and it's like, okay, we're over that hurdle and things are good and we feel connected and there's some space to explore. What do we do now to maybe maximize our experience? This is a great thing to explore. And I hope, I told Serena when we got off the call, I hope she turns this into an online course that can be available for people to sort of keep building pleasure and connection, which I just think is so important. Anyway, hope you get a ton out of the episode. And before we start the show today, it is sponsored by Intimacy with Ease. It's a method to help otherwise happy couples achieve a sex life that is easy and fun for both of them, so that you can actually just enjoy your sex life with zero stress. For more information, if you want to watch a brief little training video that's available, all of that, go to intimacywithease.com. So Serena, thank you so much for being on the show with me.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
So I guess tell the listeners just a little bit about what it is you do, broadly, and then we'll get into orgasmic expansion and how that kind of fits in your work.
Sure. Well, I'm a somatic sex educator and a sex coach in the North Atlantic in Canada. So I'm way far up there in the cold north. So we like to stay warm. So I help people do anything from, navigate their challenges individually, sexually, or in a couple, any sort of partnership actually at all, to be honest with you. Expand their intimacy work. And then I've kind of created my own little fusion of a few techniques that I've learned over the years and created orgasmic expansion for couples that are already kind of on a good wavelength with one another sexually. This kind of isn't really a place for people to come if they're looking to learn about intimacy. This is where you would go once, you really just want to push past those boundaries of like the norm and kind of do something a little different.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe you could define, can you define orgasmic expansion? Like what is this thing? And what did you combine and how,
Right. It's a fusion of like slow sex techniques, breathing, orgasmic potential, and like neo-tantric exercises kind of all fused into one. So to walk through it,
before you walk through it, because I do want to do that. I'm imagining, okay, so I don't know who listens to my podcast because I throw this out in the ether, right? And I've got no idea, but I'm imagining that some of them are thinking, is this really woo-woo? Do we have to be woo-woo? Like, should we just turn this off now? Because this is, I love that. Go there.
That is such a good question because I try so hard. It is so hard, isn't it? Because we do those things and we talk about this stuff in sort of a way with a different kind of language and narrative. And they'll shut down right away sometimes if they don't think they're going to get it. But this stuff is so tangible and it's so practical. Okay. It's really not anything esoteric. It's really not anything where you need to be, a yogi master or, a tantric practitioner, anything like that to do. That's my job. That's my job.
So this is accessible for like every couple out there.
Yes, definitely. Cool. The only couples that I have a very detailed intake when it comes to this specific phase is, this is not something to come to fix your relationship. That's the other stuff that I do, right? Okay. So we'll do that in a separate one. This is when we've come together already. You feel very comfortable, very safe, and you really do want to expand your potential with your partner. Yeah. Okay. So this isn't kind of like a dog or a baby. This isn't going to fix everything. This is the stuff you add on top of an already beautiful sexual relationship. Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. So you want to walk us through it? What is
Okay. Well, so during orgasmic expansion, generally when people come in first, we start out with a few intimacy exercises, a few neo-tantric exercises, if you will. I hesitate to use those words, as you say, because some people really they can't grasp the concept of what it really is. But neo-tantra itself is kind of a really, really, really watered down version of tantric practices. I almost hesitate to use it because I don't want to appropriate that kind of belief system and those cultures.
Right.
I really do feel strongly about that. I try not to use it too often. I don't use it in my promos or anything. But the idea is to come in and kind of connect on a different level. Connect on we do some eye gazing, for example. We do some touch exercises that maybe you've never done before that sounds so simple. Sitting back to back and just breathing deeply. Couples don't do that. We don't do that on a Wednesday night. Right?
That's not a normal thing. Right.
We don't sit down and on a Wednesday night just sit there and sync our breathing. Right. Now, you don't have to be, like I said, a yogi or any sort of practitioner to do this, but the energy connection that happens when you start practicing these things, or even when you do it for the first time, you can feel it in the room. Yeah. Right. You don't have to have any sort of background in order to feel that in the room. So we start out that way and we kind of get these couples synced in to one another. Over the course of, let's say, 3 sessions together, we start from doing breath work, doing some eye gazing, maybe, which is also something we don't do on a Wednesday night, sitting there 5-10 minutes, just staring into each other's eyes. Mm-hmm. That's the hardest part. Sometimes I don't tell people we're going to do that because they might not come if I do tell them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after the fact, they're always quite excited. 5 minutes goes by and lickety split, right? They think it's going to take so long. And then we work through body work. So I'm a somatic sex educator and a sexological body worker as well. So what I do, instead of doing the body work on people, what I like to do is bring couples in and teach them to do it to each other.
Yeah.
I think I'm not going to be in your bedroom for the rest of your life. I'm not going to be there. So for certain people, my work is individual and we work together. But for couples, when it comes to that, I think it's just so expansive. So there's so much potential in learning each other's body and learning how to work with each other's body this way. So we sit there and we take turns. So it gets intimate. There's nudity. We're naked. They're naked. Pardon me. I'm not. I'm sitting back at quite a lovely distance and I give you your privacy. And I walk you through learning like erotic massage, not therapeutic massage, and not necessarily sexual massage, which I think people get a little confused by.
Yeah.
We're not massaging your partner in order to turn them on. We're massaging your partner in order to let them relax into the art of receiving, right? I'm teaching these people to receive touch and also while they're giving touch, to receive the pleasure sensations that come from giving as well as the receiving.
Yeah.
So the partner who is receiving touch will just lie there breathing. We'll work through some breathing techniques of belly breathing, just really deep meditative moments while the other partner is kind of relaxing their body into their sensation. And then we get down to the genitals and we work through things like, and I'll explain these in a minute, but things like genital mapping, genital massage. And then a pleasure component will come kind of at the end. So mapping the genitals, you'd go down, and as the giver is performing on their partner, I'll walk them through what they're feeling. Okay. So the partner is being guided to just breathe and allow the sensations in their body, allow the erotic response in their body to just happen. Okay. We're not focused on it. We're not focused on reciprocating afterwards like we usually are in, you know, in a couple situation. This partner doesn't have to do anything after this session except relax and go home. So they're being guided into breath work and guided into kind of like feeling into their body. The giver is guided into feeling parts of their partner's body that maybe they've never really felt before. They've just skimmed over it. You skim over the belly, you skim over the sides and the hips and the thighs. You don't melt into those parts. You know, we go from what? The lips to the neck, to the nipples, to the genitals, you know, and then we just kind of like end it there. But what I want to do is get people to kind of go in and, you know, feel the pubic mound. What does it feel like to you to touch that? What sensations are happening? What does it look like? Let's say we have a male-female dynamic. What does this partner's vulva look like right now? What's the color now before we've started? So I'm talking to these people. It really isn't, I don't know how to put it. Like, it's not really so erotic that we're falling away from the reason that we're there, right? I'm guiding them the entire time. In the session. Right. Yeah. So we're guiding the entire time. So it's, what does it look like? You know, are you seeing any changes in color? Have you ever looked at your partner's labia before? Have you ever touched your partner's labia before? And then all of these things are happening while the partner is receiving all of this erotic touch that maybe she has never felt before. Maybe she's never had her labia played with before, massaged. Maybe her pubic mound isn't something that she generally gets kind of like rubbed or massaged or anything. So she's enjoying all of the pleasure. He's enjoying the visual. Okay. So let's call a spade a spade. Visual is really important when we're with our partners, and we don't take that. We turn off the lights, right? We turn off the lights and we pull the covers up and we don't really look, but we take for granted how erotic that visual can be, you know, and what kind of different sensations will come up in your body if you actually take the time to look.
So wait, question.
So, what
if the person that's receiving this is not enjoying it, or something comes up that they don't like, or this is irritating as opposed to pleasurable, you know, because where's the role for speaking up about that or something?
Definitely. And so that comes, I don't want to say naturally, but over the course of the phases, she's been guided or he's been guided to speak up and say that. That's the whole point. The art of receiving is not necessarily lying there and taking what you don't like. Right. It's giving feedback and being able to take feedback as well. Yeah. So that's a whole part of it. So with that said, the way that I'm talking to the partner saying, how does it look? What's going on? So there's a conversation happening. The partner who's receiving could also very well be like, you know, my left labia doesn't feel as good as my right labia. Hey, can you rub on that one a little bit more? So we're enjoying this feedback loop that doesn't generally happen when you are alone with your partner, just kind of hoping for the best, you know? So we're going to do that. So let's say that she's completely enjoying everything that's going on, and then we move forward. My idea is to allow the partner then to see the physiological changes that are going to happen in their partner's body, right? So that they have an idea of the time that it takes for the labia. Like, oh my God, I love the look on a lot of partners' faces when they're like, it's getting bigger. I'm like, and it's changing color. And I'm like, because it needs time to do that. And isn't it beautiful? Right. And I've had some women say things like, you know, I don't really like it when my labia swell. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It makes me, you know, when he touches it, I feel really self-conscious because it doesn't look perfect. And this is one of those moments where we're in a situation where you're being told that that's perfectly fine. And it's exactly what you want to see. And isn't this beautiful? And isn't it gorgeous? Right. Yeah. So now the partner is guided to kind of say something like that to the partner. Tell her, what do you see? What's going on? You know, and he'll say, you know, it was kind of purple and now I'm seeing some pink hues come up, and he's taking the time to go there. The entire time in the background is the physiological response happening in the partner, right? You're giving your body time, consciously just breathing through it and moving that energy through your body. Now we've worked on that, and your partner gets to go down there and kind of explore your genitals a little bit while you're receiving that pleasure. Now the end goal is to do the genital mapping, look at the vulva in this particular incidence, look at the vagina, kind of like work around there, and then work our way back up to the clitoris. Okay. So we leave the clitoris alone because we always go straight for the clitoris.
Right.
But we're going to leave her alone until she's ready. So now here's this beautiful visual of the timing that it has taken, the visual of maybe the labia swelling. Now he is understanding the physiological responses that are happening in this partner's body. She's feeling the touch, but breathing that through her body. So she's moving that energy a little bit more out of her head. She doesn't care how long it's taking because she knows full well it's supposed to be this long because she's been told we're going to be here for a good half an hour, 45 minutes, settle in, get comfy.
Yeah.
You don't have to reciprocate. She's relaxed, hopefully, right? So this is where the feedback comes. And then we work up to the clitoris. So then when we go up to the clitoris, we take in some of the slow sex techniques that have been kind of taught around when it comes to orgasmic meditation, kind of specifically. So we'll work with the clitoris and kind of map that out on her little pleasure spots. So like on a 12 o'clock clock, we'll start on the top on 12 and, she'll give a little feedback like that feels great. And then he'll go around to 1, 2, 3, the whole way. And as we go around, the partner receiving is guided to, whether she can get words out or not, or whether they can get words out or not. Just give a little indication, right? Does this feel great? Is that not so good? I don't really feel anything here. And then when we find the spot, the most sensitive spot, the partner is now guided to very slowly and gently stroke that area for a set time limit. Mm-hmm. So we'll put a time limit on it, maybe 7 minutes, and we'll set a timer and I'll say, okay, now here we go. I'm going to set the timer, and for a very slow, methodical, like rhythmic movement, I want you to stroke the clitoris in that one spot that she has indicated as her sensitive spot. And we're just going to allow her body to work through whatever pleasure happens. So then after that, hopefully there's an orgasm. But if there isn't, that orgasmic potential that builds up in the body is now being moved through the breath that she is kind of working with and being guided through. The heat that's building up in our genitals that we generally keep in our genitals, I'm guiding her now to breathe that in and expand that through her body. And whether or not they go over the edge of orgasm or whether they just kind of stay in plateau the entire time, the energy is being moved through the body. The pleasure is being moved through the body instead of that one little sneeze orgasm, where like we do it and it's done and it's over. The whole point is to kind of expand that potential into like a longer edging session, if you will, to kind of move the energy through the body and stay within that plateau.
Yeah.
Hi, it's Jessa here, taking just a quick break. Thanks for listening so far. I wanted to let you know about the sex quiz that I've put together called How Healthy Is Your Sex Life? I've taken a close look at the typical ways that I see couples get into trouble with sex, including avoidance, neglect, negativity, distraction, and boredom. And the free quiz will score your individual results based on these factors. And then I provide my recommendations and ideas, including my top 10 sex tips, which will help you make instant improvement. If you'd like to take the quiz and see how healthy your sex life is, you can do it right now at sexhealthquiz.com.
If the partner comes to an orgasm 3 minutes into the 7, what happens then?
We can do whatever you want at that point.
Okay.
We can keep going, right? We can keep going because that's always on the table. Or if we become quite sensitive after that, right? So the point is not necessarily to bring you, multi-orgasmic at that point. It really is just to kind of move that energy. So if 3 minutes in, the partner becomes orgasmic and expands and that's it, the potential is there and now we're refracting, then that's totally okay. We can say then at that moment, would you like to keep going? And then it's up to them to decide, right? At that moment to kind of keep going. Some people will say, nope, I'm good. Please, I need a minute, right? Yeah. So then we kind of start over again if we want to, or we'll do it in a different session. Mm-hmm. But if they want to keep going, we give them a minute and then we kind of keep going again. But the thing is, it's not necessarily a a sexual act, right? It's really more of an energetic act. So once that's kind of over, the idea is not to bring you back into orgasm. The idea was to hold you in that potential for as long as we can. So once we've gone over, we may just back it up a little bit and be like, okay, let's relax and we'll try this again another time.
So is there anything different in the instructions if it is somebody with a penis receiving this?
Well, other than the, stroke technique itself, not really. So we'll do the exact same thing. And then when it comes to stroking the shaft and stroking the coronal ridge, we'll play with everything. We'll kind of be doing like a hand job idea, but it's much slower. And what I generally find is that men, penis owners, after a certain amount of time and the buildup is not what they're used to, they may lose their erection. Mm-hmm. And that is actually the most beautiful part, because then they get to be in a moment where they generally don't allow themselves to go on a regular basis. If we lose our erections, generally we think there's something wrong, or we have to stop, or we have to, whatever. But in this instance, your partner is told to keep going, keep massaging that penis, play with the soft cock, right? Like there's nothing wrong with that. And so many men will say to me, I didn't realize I actually had pleasure potential in a soft penis the way I have in my hard penis.
Right. Yeah. So how is this? I mean, obviously it's different than traditional sensate focus, like what are the similarities, the differences? Is this something people do instead?
Well, I feel like this is probably a little bit, when I have people sign up for this, I sometimes have them sign up. It's a 3-phase program. Okay. So the first phase, we don't do any of this touching. And then at home, they're guided to do different things together. And then they come into me for second phase, and it's the female phase, the clitoral phase, and then it's the penile phase. So there's 3 different phases when it comes into it. Sensate focus itself being, take all sexual touch away and add it in slowly is the idea behind this, but only to build up on an already satisfying sex life. So the differences would be, sensate focus being, let's get you back to where maybe you should be, or maybe you want to be after some challenges. And me using kind of the same techniques, taking orgasm off the table. That's not the idea, but using it once you've already maintained that healthy sexual kind of well-being within a couple.
Right. Already. So this is a way to keep going after perhaps doing the work that sensate focus would be involved in. So speak to the whole idea of orgasm being the goal of this, or expanse. I mean, as a sex therapist, the way I talk about this is it's very nice to be able to have an orgasm if you want one, like to have that capacity, like to be accessible, but then it's not the point of sex. Like I'm trying to constantly talk people out of this as the goal and the end point.
So exactly. So that's the whole thing, is that when I have people in to talk about orgasmic expansion, it sounds like you're going to take that. It's all about orgasm.
Right.
But what you realize when you come in is that it isn't the orgasm that we're working with. It's the pleasure potential that you're feeling in your body, right? It's that physiological response cycle that's happening in your body, that sexual response cycle that's happening in your body. And we don't ever have to go over the top. You don't ever have to go there. From point A, let's say point C is orgasm. From point A to point C, there's so much pleasure that's happening during every single one of those moments, but we skip it, right? I said earlier, we go from kissing to clit to orgasm to sleep.
Yeah.
And people get so stressed out about that. So if we can bring it so that, the partner who's receiving has orgasm completely off the table. That's not the idea. That's not why you're here. Okay. Sometimes I'll say, look, you're not going to orgasm. You're not going to orgasm. I'm in the room. This is weird. This is not going to happen for you. Please just take that off the table. We're just letting your body respond to your partner's touch, right? We're going to have you learn the art of receiving. We're going to have you learn how to kind of like lie back and enjoy the sensation of him touching your neck, the sensation of the erotic massage that's happening. We're not going near your nipples. We're not going near any of these erogenous zones, right? You're going to take the time to really feel how is your body responding to all the different beautiful touch that your partner gets to give you? And then once we get to the genitals, if it happens, it happens, but that's not the point. The point is to allow your body to expand sexually and for you to move that energy through your body so that you can take that, translate it into a real life situation where maybe you're with a partner, you're feeling erotic potential building up in your body. You're not afraid, quote, afraid that you're not going to have an orgasm because you know now how to move that pleasure through your body and enjoy it for everything that it is, instead of that one little 10-second moment of orgasm and how much pressure that puts on you and your partners and the situation as a whole.
Yeah. So what are the most common difficulties or challenges people have in this work? Like, you've worked with a lot of couples, I assume, sitting across the room. What are the sort of most common things that show up as barriers or obstacles or, could derail people a little bit?
Right. Well, the idea of having a third party in the room is a big deal for a lot of people, right? Yeah. So, they think in their head, oh, this is going to be this is going to be fun. Now like I said, and I've said this a couple of times, this isn't, you don't come in for session one and all of a sudden we're on, on the table naked. This is over the course of time and we've kind of gotten to know each other. But still, there's been moments where we've been, into it. And right away, somebody will say, I can't do this. I don't feel comfortable. I'm kind of shaky, right? Like it's fight or flight right now. Like there's somebody watching me. I'm performing. Those things come up still.
Right.
So, at that moment, there really is no question. It's not me trying to talk you into it. It's okay. We're done. That's great. Great session. And we'll try again if you want to try again another time. This is really for you and not for me, right? Yeah. This isn't something that I need to do all the time. When it comes to the receivers, working through that moment of all you have to do is breathe is really hard for people to shut their heads off.
Yeah.
Right. Like it's sometimes I compare it sometimes to going and getting a massage, is that usually people only actually melt into their massage 15 minutes before it's over. So, right. And it takes you a little while. Like you have to get them regularly before okay, as soon as I get on the table, I have to be quiet and just kind of like melting because this is going to be a beautiful hour. The same thing happens.
Yeah.
So it may take 2 or 3 times. Couples have homework to do when they go home. Sometimes they find it much easier to do it when they're home alone, without me there kind of, quote, scrutinizing what they're doing, which I'm not, of course, but that's our egos. I mean, we're all afraid to kind of fail when it comes to things like that. So shutting off our brains is a really big part of it, I think, for the person who's receiving this pleasure. And then the person giving and, their anxiety on, am I doing it right? Is this how you do it? Is this what's going on? And you can tell that they're not actually into the sensation of touch, that they're really into their heads.
Yeah.
So just working with people on getting out of their heads and into their bodies is really the biggest challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would imagine you've had people break into tears.
During couple sessions, I have not, but individually I have.
Yeah.
Yeah. Individually I have. I feel like during the couple sessions, as intimate and vulnerable as it really is more for pleasure. People at that point, they're coming in for pleasure. But when I work individually with people, it's more working through trauma and working through their blockages and things like that. So individually, the vulnerability comes to the surface a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. And so what do you think people's biggest questions are or misconceptions? I mean, you may have addressed a bunch of them when you're talking about how, what these sessions kind of look like and what's happening.
Right.
But what do you think people's biggest misconception is or fear is of be like, oh no, this is not for me.
Right.
Well, it might be,
Number one is that we're just going to come in and Serena's going to give us hand jobs. That's not, do you know what I mean? Like
yes.
That's the biggest one. It's a funny one. I think it's kind of a funny one, but you can't help but expect that from people when it comes to, massage parlors and things like that and the language around this job and things, and I understand it and I kind of laugh at it. And I help try to make people feel more comfortable by agreeing with them that of course that's where you would go, but that's not what I do.
Right.
So that's one of the biggest misconceptions. The other is that I would participate. So I don't participate in the touch themselves. That's something really important that people need to know, is that when you come in, I'm at a very, far off distance. We talk very much about your comfort level. Some couples don't mind me, I don't want to say all up in your face, but like pretty close guiding you. But there are others. We have, a lot of different ways to maintain your privacy. The room is quite large. You're on a massage table. Your partner is working on you. I can be as far away, turn back on. We talk about all of these things before getting into the situation, right? It's I said, it's not a schedule it on Tuesday, and Tuesday afternoon, you're on the table. This is like after a week or so, 2 weeks, 3 weeks of sessions and kind of having these conversations with people. So I don't participate in the touch when it comes to couples. I think that that's really important for them to learn how to do on their own. And there have been times where I've been asked to maybe come closer and guide me in what I'm supposed to do. And there's boundaries that are set up prior to session, and those boundaries never get kind of pushed during session, right?
Yeah,
and consent as well. I've had, we have this moment in session prior to any physical touch where I say, so I lay it out. This is what we're doing today. And we agree to it. And then if there's a point that you're not ready for, let's say, okay, so specifically it would be, we're going to do erotic massage today, and then we're going to work on genital mapping. Are you okay with going genital mapping today, or would you like to continue to work on erotic massage? And they say, just erotic massage. I'm not ready for the genitals. But now during session, somebody gets really comfortable and you get, you let your guard down a little bit. And then during session, you say, do you know what? I'd really like to go and do the genital mapping now. Well, here's the thing. We've already said no to that. So we're not going to allow our brains to take over, and we're not going to change that right now. We'll come back for next session. Next session, we'll talk about it again and we'll go there, but we're never going to go backwards in that consent.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It takes over, right? Our brain and our pleasure center kind of takes over. We're like, we want more. But after the fact, you didn't want more because logically,
you might second guess yourself or have some regrets about that, which you don't want to do. Is all of this work done in person, or do you have a way to work through this where people all over the place can do it at home, or, what are the resources for people?
That's really challenging for me. I'll be honest with you. I work in person with people locally where I am. I start off these sessions virtually sometimes, doing some of the breath work and the eye gazing and the things like that. I've never actually had a client set who wanted to do it virtually. Mm-hmm. So once that kind of comes up, then, we can work through that together. But I don't know how that would work. Really. I really like being in the presence of the people who are there. I think it sets the tone for the session. I think it kind of sets the expectations a little bit higher than it being just me on one side of a screen. And then I hate to say it, but performing a sex act on the other side of the screen, and there not being protection for either one of us. I think that's kind of a moment where I like keeping it personal.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So where can people find you, find more about you?
Well, my Instagram handle is SDH_rewilding. A lot of my content is on there. I like to post a little video every day, giving some intimacy exercises, techniques, tips, and techniques. I have a website as well that's linked through my Instagram. We're kind of in a rebuild right now. And I do local workshops where I'm from as well.
Yeah. I imagine you have people coming in from far away, though.
Yeah, there's people that travel. Yeah, it's beautiful. There are people that travel when they come in, and they kind of make like a weekend retreat out of it. And, they'll come into the city and do their thing and come see me and go have dinner. And it's such a beautiful experience for couples to enjoy together. It's something different. It's outside the box. It's not what you would consider, like that couples retreat weekend away generally, It's kind of in depth and intense, and the people who come really want to be here.
Yeah.
So it's really cool to see the energy and to kind of feel the energy that happens when, people who have made the trek to kind of come in and see they really want to work hard. They can't wait to do all the exercises and all the work. And by the time they leave me, it's a different kind of friendship. It's a different kind of kinship when you have an intimate relationship with people like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing about it.
Thank you so much for having me. I feel like I just want to talk about it all the time so people understand that it's not so taboo and it's not full of, all of the secrecy. And, I think it's something that's accessible for a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Jessa.
You've been listening to Better Sex. Please visit our website, bettersexpodcast.com, for show notes and additional episodes.
And that's a wrap for today. I really hope you enjoyed the episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, if some of this material resonates with you and you would like to make a difference and make sure that this keeps coming out in the world once a week, ongoing, there are a couple things you could do to show your appreciation. The first would be to go to iTunes and rate and review the show. That really helps us be found by new listeners when you review the show on iTunes. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/iTunes. The other thing I want to invite you to consider is becoming a Patreon. For a small monthly pledge, you get some benefits. So for $2 a month, you get advance access to every single episode. For $5 a month, you get a chapter of my upcoming new book. And for $10 a month, I host quarterly get-to-know-you and question-and-answer chats over the web, and you get invited to that. I would love to have your membership in that, become part of the Better Sex family. You can find a link at bettersexpodcast.com/Patreon, which is Patreon. Again, thanks for listening. I'm glad you're here. Feel free to comment, ask questions, get in touch. I'd love to hear from listeners. Thanks.